Our sabotage attempts had hit a roadblock. Over the past few months, several well-timed and thoroughly thought-out attempts to foil British Railways operations had ended in failure. Now this happening 1 or 2 times, that I could understand. But every time? No. That was borderline impossible. I had had a chat with Mr. Stard the night before, and no matter which way we twisted or turned it, the verdict always ended up the same. There had to be someone giving out information to our opponents. There had to be a mole. My name is Ramsay Radnor, Private Investigator. I awoke to the sound of my colleagues engaged in conversation, though it was hard to make out exactly what they were talking about. I looked around, noticing that all of the engines currently present were publicly affiliated with Mr. Stard, meaning they could all be suspects. I moved cautiously forward, trying not to draw attention to myself.
Morning, Ramsay.
Shit, I've been compromised.
What?
I pulled myself together, trying to act natural.
What?
Good morning, gentlemen. I couldn't help but overhear you all conversing. Anyone care to fill me in what I've missed?
Nothing much, really. We were just talking about the work we've been assigned today.
I've been assigned short local goods and banking duties.
Coal delivery to Acton Yard for me.
And big shock. Shunting for me.
That's because you're a diesel shunter, mate. Ever seen a shunter take an express before?
Once or twice, yeah.
Oh. Well, other than that, we're not doing anything special.
I see. Interesting.
Why'd you ask?
In truth, there was nothing interesting about what I had learned from the others. Everything seemed routine, as always. But then again, when dealing with someone who covered their tracks this well, you could never be too thorough. I pondered to myself for a moment, trying to figure out what my next move should be.
What's up with him?
I'm unsure. I think he's finally lost it.
I came to the conclusion that there was nothing more for me to learn by interrogating the others. I therefore decided to take a more drastic approach. I had to go directly to the competition. All I could do as I set off was pray that this would be my lucky break.
Yep, he's lost it.
What do you think he was talking about?
Beats me.
It's Ramsay. He's always been insane. So who cares?
You know what? Fair point.
Next on my agenda was Culford Sheds. Based on the intel Mr. Stard had provided me the night before, King Richard and Hart Hall were going to be sat comfortably in the sheds, just waiting to accidentally give up the engine that's been causing us all the hassle. With King Richard being in a foul mood after losing his link to fame by being taken off the Redwick Flyer, I knew now was the right time to gather intel. As I came through Culford Station, I began coasting closer to the sheds, being careful not to give myself away.
I can't believe he's sending me to London of all places. What, just because I'm not on the flyer anymore, I've become redundant?
It hardly makes any sense at all. But if the board has agreed, there's really nothing we can do about it.
No, I guess not. Damn that Stard in his cathedral. He's taken my image and squandered it.
Indeed. If only he had let things be. Then again, he's always had a fascination for breaking conventions.
And rules.
Yes, and rules. I still can't believe they haven't fired him after all of those failed sabotage attempts against us.
Yes, indeed. Luckily for us, though, it seems our guardian angel has been hard at work.
I was not surprised to hear those two talking slander about Mr. Stard. In fact, it would be more surprising to hear anything different come out of their smoke boxes. Though they hadn't revealed much yet, I could tell by their tone that their conversation had not yet come to a conclusion. All I had to do was keep listening, and the information would fall right into my tender. All I needed was a little bit more time and...
Ramsey, can you get out of my bloody way? I'm trying to haul a train here.
Shit, I've been compromised.
Did he not realise we could hear him?
It would seem he did not. How strange.
Yes, then again, that one has always had a screw or two loose. What do you think he was trying to accomplish?
I have no idea, King Richard. I really don't.
Colford had been a bust. Like trying to pull engines at Manchester-London Road, I had been less than successful. My supply of leads was running out faster than Mr. Starr's cocaine stash on a Wednesday night. As I rolled through Endon, a thought had struck me. There was a chance, and Mr. Starr had left out a few key details whilst explaining this situation to me. After all, he had been extremely drunk and crying into my buffer beam that night, whilst babbling on about being turned down by the sandwich stand waitresses again. As I drew closer to Redwick, my mind was made up. I would have to interrogate Stard once more. I could only hope he'd be more sober this time. I arrived into Redwick Station and firmly requested that the station master would fetch Mr. Stard for me, due to my inability to enter his office myself. Though the man was angry at me for interrupting his self-pleasure session, he nevertheless got a hold of Mr. Stard. About 15 minutes later, he approached me in the carriage shed. I could tell by the lack of a strong smell coming off him that he'd been thankfully not drinking that day. There is a first time for everything, I suppose. He looked at me as if I'd just insulted his mother, but before he could speak, I began my routine. Good day to you, Mr. Stard. I'm currently taking it upon myself to look into the matter we discussed last night. I was wondering if there was some information you had left out, perhaps. Maybe some names or clues that you left out in your emotional state last night.
I thought we agreed not to speak of that again. Fine. From what we talked about last night, all signs point towards a mole in our midst. We have 0 successful ploys against our competition as of late, something that should be close to impossible.
Indeed, I thought the same thing. But with how well they cover their tracks, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly who is behind it all. None of the engines I spoke to at Manifell seemed to have anything to hide, and King Richard and Hart Hall seemed to know someone was helping them, but I couldn't get their full story before having to come here.
I see. Well, it would seem you've covered most of our bases. I guess the only thing to do at this point is look at the past. Who has committed slights against us in the past, like heart slagging me off or said almost blowing up the flyer coaches?
Mr. Stard had a point. With all our leads exhausted, it was time to go basic. I would have to mingle with my lesser colleagues. I was hoping to avoid this. Meeting with Mr. Stard was bad enough, but mingling with the common folk could damage my reputation.
Ramsey, what the fuck are you doing?
Mr. Stard had always been a bit of a recluse, always looking for an excuse to get drunk or get with the next lady on the corner. None of us really liked him. However, we tolerated him for the time being, at least until a replacement could be sorted.
Right, fuck you. I'm going back to my paperwork.
Back to do paperwork, he says. Doubtful. That Mr. Stard, I know, would never do any work. The man was always on the move. Maybe he was the one double-crossing us all. Maybe he...
Ramsey, go do your damn work!
In a way, he was right. Now was not the time for speculation. I would have to swallow my pride and go mingle with my colleagues. Hopefully they would be more compliant than our manager. After that less than enlightening talk with Mr. Stard, I made my way over to the roundhouse opposite of the carriage sidings. There, my next suspect sat waiting, silent, sheltered, emotionless, and of course, suspicious. Anthony Manor was all of these things and more. He was our latest recruit, one that I resented at that, but I couldn't deny that even under my watchful eye, he had not so much as put a buffer out of line. In fact, he had been quite helpful to have around when it came to his input in matters that the rest of us did not have an answer to. But even with all of this in mind, there was something about him that didn't sit right with me, in the same way as if a Dubdee were to date a terrier. I soon found myself in an available shed berth, with the other engines in the sheds looking at me as I decided to make my presence known. How goes it on this fine day?
Just fine, Radnor. Who were you talking to just now?
I'm unsure what you mean, old chap. I haven't said a word until now.
Right.
Anyway, what are you doing up here, Ramsay? Weren't you supposed to take the local up today?
I'm working on something for Mr. Stard today. I'm sure they found someone to cover for me.
Interesting. So what did Mr. Stard want you to do then? Market research?
No, not quite. It concerns Anthony, and to a degree, Thor.
What's Thorson got to do with this?
Easy, Anthony. I don't mind. What's up, Ramsay?
Well, it's about something I overheard Richard saying, and since you two used to work with him almost every day, I thought it best to inquire with the two of you.
It's about all that stuff, is it? Do you mind holding that thought till I move out of here? I'd rather not get involved with all of this.
Of course, as you were.
Cheers, mate. Much appreciated.
Right. What was it you wanted to ask, Ramsay?
It's just a simple thing, really. I overheard King Richard talking about a so-called guardian angel who had been helping them get in the way of some of the things Mr. Stard had been planning. And I was just curious, seeing as you both have spent so much time with him on the flyer, if he had mentioned anything to you guys.
Not that I can recall, no. Well, actually, now that you mention it, right before Reginald came here, he seemed to get in a better mood over time, more relaxed. He said something about luck finally turning around thanks to something changing. I can't remember what, though.
I see. When was this exactly?
I'd say maybe a week or two after I got rostered onto the flyer.
That was right around the time.
I remember him saying something as well. Must have been around the time we both got rostered onto the flyer during winter. He mentioned something about how he hoped their latest recruits wouldn't be as loud-mouthed as he usually was. Something about blurting out secrets.
Blurting out secrets, you say? That sounds familiar. How come you didn't bring this to our attention right away?
Well, why would he? Have you asked him before?
No, of course not. I only just overheard it. But as one of us, he should have brought it to our attention when you joined.
Wait, joined? What's that supposed?
Don't worry about it, Thorson. To answer your question, Radnor, I didn't really think much of it at the time, and since then just basically forgot about it. Your question just reminded me of that encounter, that's all.
That is understandable, young manor.
I'm older than you.
In truth, I still found it a bit hard to trust Anthony Manor. Though he had proven to be a good addition to our roster, he had a weird presence around him. But what he said seemed to check out.
What's he doing?
Just be quiet and ignore him. He might go away.
There was only one engine on the line I knew to not be able to keep his gob shut, spewing out secrets like that quack of a pannier tank with the oversized funnel I met once. It was time to bring this to the attention of my fellow colleagues. I would have to put out the call for them to all gather tonight. I smiled to myself as I departed the sheds, finally content with my findings.
I'm so confused right now.
You and me both, little brother.
What was that whole spiel about you being part of their crew, though? I thought...
Ignore him. He's probably gone mad on Welsh coal or something.
Well, all right.
The conversation at Redwick had been enlightening, to say the least. After I had departed, the pieces of the puzzle began falling into place like coal into an empty tender. The answer to all of my questions had been right in front of me since I awoke this morning down at Manifell. All I had left to do was to inform Mr. Stard and my fellow band of saboteurs of my findings, so we could get back on track once and for all. I got the shedmaster to call Mr. Stard down to the sheds of Manifold later that night, and now, with the manager standing impatiently in front of me, I was ready to discuss my findings.
Well, get on with it then. I haven't got all night.
A man of haste as always, sir. Very well. As I'm sure you all know, our sabotage attempts have all led to complete and utter failure as of late. At first, we all figured it was due to the incompetence from you lot, but after some digging into the matter, we now believe it's the fault of a mole in our midst.
Right. And how did you come to this conclusion?
Well, it was quite easy, young Virgil.
I'm older than you.
I learned of this possible ploy against us from Mr. Stard here,
Ramsey.
who was drunk off his arse and crying into my buffer beam at the time.
God fucking damn it. Get on with it.
So I decided to spend the day doing my own investigation into the matter, and the discoveries I made were quite shocking. First, of course, I tried my hand at finding any information from you lot, but you proved less than useful.
Ouch.
Then, of course, there was King Richard and Hart Hall, who as per usual were bad-mouthing us and our nutcase manager, so nothing unusual there either. But they did seem to know something was going on, referring to their guardian angel, but that's about it. Then I went to inquire with Mr. Stard to see if he had left any details out in his drunken state, which of course there were plenty. Nothing surprising thereat.
Oh, for the love of... Ramsey, I'm freezing my cock off here. Can you speed it up?
Very well. After looking at the evidence and facts, I've determined that the culprit is in this very shed as we speak. I could tell by the confused expressions of my colleagues' smoke boxes that I had struck gold. The mole had nowhere to run or hide now. I allowed fear to set in as I withheld the name for a moment, smirking as I fell.
Ramsey! Name! Now!
As per usual, the man had no respect for theatrics. Very well, sir. The engine who has been causing us all such a hassle is none other than Clark.
Wait, what? I didn't do shit!
On the contrary, young shunter, you see I've gathered a long and incriminating
I'm gonna have to stop you right there, Ramsey. I don't need to hear your list of evidence.
See? Someone sees sense here!
I don't need to hear it, because I believe it.
Wait, what?
Clark will be sent to the works for reconditioning to avoid further incident.
Cunt!
And as for you, Ramsey, as a reward to you, and your investigation, you will be sent off to Paddington to deploy those, excellent detective skills and keep an eye on King Richard.
Consider it done, sir.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to head to my office to defrost my balls before I go sterile. I wish you all a good night, engines.
As Mr. Stard made his way towards the station, a wave of relief and pride washed over me. I had done it. I had solved the mystery. Once more, Detective Ramsey of Radnor had solved the case without suffering any casualties. I'd closed my eyes after such a long day of hard work. A long rest was exactly what I need.
Ramsey, will you shut up?
Wait, what?
We've been listening to you talking to yourself all night. It's getting kind of old.
Hold on. So you lot could hear me the entire time?
Yes! Gunt!
Mm-hmm. Every word.
Ever since this morning.
Oh.